Welcome everyone. My name is Asia Duncan. I am the Senior Consultant for Quantum Associates Consulting, and I am here today to present the Mandatory Study Abroad Program Recommendation Report for North Plains Community College. We were commissioned by the Vice President of Operations, Laura Wallace, to find and research the best course of action to implement a study abroad program for NPCC. Currently, NPCC doesn't offer a study abroad program, but we found that there were potential benefits. There were cost disparities and student interest in our study, which was found through academic reports, government.org sites, participation interviews, and peer-reviewed studies. We prioritized strong authoritative sources that were recently published or had very reliable data metrics. We focused primarily on 4 key topics that impact a study abroad program. There was cost, which was a major barrier for many students, and we'll delve into that later. There's demographics and parameters. There are certain demographics that were more likely to participate in a study abroad program. There are program types. There's a multitude of program types for a study abroad program, but we focused on 2, and that would be the traditional short-term program and then a TLE program, which is a transformative learning experience program, and we will delve more into that later. And then there are benefits and disadvantages of studying abroad. And the benefits and disadvantages of those 2 specific types of programs. So today we're going to start with demographics and perimeters. There are certain perimeters and certain demographics that were more prominent in participation. Our research showed that the most popular time is the summer, and destinations are UK, Italy, China, Costa Rica, and more. Majors were usually STEM, with some variations. It was more often and higher rate of women versus men who would participate in study abroad programs. They were often white or ethnically white versus minorities that were less likely to participate. They were more often needs-based financial aid recipients, meaning they utilized loans, grants, and scholarships to pay for school. And then they were often in research institution colleges, and then they were often in STEM. However, there were disparities with that in some studies, but overall it looked as if studying STEM or science was the primary. Next, we will focus on our study abroad types. As I said, we focused on 2 specific study abroad types of programs. Our first is the most well-known. It's the traditional 4 to 6 week short-term study abroad program. This one we found had about 60% of all study abroad programs are short-term programs. They're more formulaic and sometimes can be less culturally retentive. And then we had a more new approach to studying abroad. They are the TLEs, or the Transformative Learning Experience programs. They are strategically planned study abroad programs done by educators, and they're higher immersive, retentive, and showed a lot of promise in recognition, cultural recognition for students. The benefits and disadvantages are a big key topic as well, that we'll want to focus on, and these will be broken down in traditional and TLE programs. We'll start with traditional. The benefits with traditional programs, study abroad programs, are that they are simple to follow. They're formulaic, which helps with organization and knowing the expected results and impact. There are a few disadvantages that we found with traditional, which is the fact that they are shorter term, which subsequently lessens the ability for a student to be as immersive as they would be in a longer term traditional study abroad program. They are more independent, which means that they don't always follow a specific itinerary, and then this can result in less immersive activities due to a lot of students, primarily from the US, going to a host country and essentially sticking together, and thus avoiding some cultural impact that they could experience. This study in particular, I do want to address, was done in the UK and Canada, which I will address a little later. And as far as the TLE, that one was done in Brazil and Costa Rica. The benefits, we'll go ahead and go into the benefits of TLE. The benefits for TLE is the immersion concept of it. This is done through an educator specifically investing in the itinerary. This means that the students don't have as much freedom to explore, but they do have specific cultural immersion activities that they invest in, which has shown increase in retention, increase in cultural connection, and recognition as well. There are a few disadvantages as well with a TLE. There isn't a lot of studies on a TLE being conducted. It's more of a sample demographic that we saw in that Brazil and Costa Rica study abroad program. There is a more rich cultural density that this particular study focused on, which can be skewed a little bit in the results versus a more diverse cultural experience such as Canada and UK, which are more similar to a US student's culture. Next, we'll go to cost. Cost was for students who were needs-based and students who were non-needs-based, family contributing, meaning their family was paying for their education. For our needs-based students, these students studied abroad and they were most likely to participate. And this is due to their access to extended funds such as loans, scholarships, and grants that family contributing students may not have direct access to. The average debt of an overseas needs-based student is actually less than the debt of a family contributing non-needs-based, non-study abroad student. And what that means essentially is, in some cases, such as unsubsidized and subsidized loans, the needs-based study abroad student actually averaged grants of $683 more than a family contributing non-study abroad student, which was 1,742 average that they had to pay. There's also grants that there was 280 less that they had to pay for a needs-based student versus the 1,644 for a non-needs family contributing student. And then there were loans that for every 1,000 for a family contributing student, they were more likely to not study abroad. So we will transition into our results as a whole. We found essentially that the demographic is can be summed up in a few simple categories. Women, ethnically white persons, needs-based financial students, STEM majors or science majors, and they are often research institution attendees. There's also benefits and disadvantages, and that is definitely dependent on the program type. There are benefits to each, there are disadvantages to each as well. But depending on the program, there are differences in cultural retention, immersion, recognition for TLEs versus a traditional short-term program. And then we'll go more into our program types, which our TLEs showed more promise and cohesive and immersive experience based on the results. Traditional programs are often too independent and don't give the students as much of an immersive experience. As far as costs, which is our last, it is needs-based students that are more predominantly expected or known to participate in study abroad programs. Usually this is due to their ability to access loans, grants, or scholarships more readily than a non-needs-based student. And then their debt is actually averaged as less than a non-needs-based family contributing non-study abroad student. So with those results, we will go into our recommendations. We recommend, based on our research, for NPCC that they use a voluntary, non-traditional, long-term study abroad program. Not necessarily a TLE, but very similar or akin to that structure. For the biggest benefit is it will be more feasible to all demographics, making it voluntary, and it's shown to have a richer cultural experience overall. So in conclusion, NPCC has the potential to have a very enriching educational experience for its students. If we focus on voluntary non-traditional programs for students, this will benefit everyone, and it will allow for contribute all students to contribute to this type of program, which makes NPCC a more inclusive and beneficial college. Thank you for your time. We welcome any questions that you may have, and we appreciate you attending. Thank you.